Ah, there we go. By the way, that Just a Robot guy recommended Vosh in one of his vids? Really? Maybe I'll be less harsh on him than I initially thought I would. Who knows? Uh, yeah. It's possible his politics are strange. His politics probably, like many Americans, are completely incoherent. Um, so I'll keep that in mind when I'm watching it. In fact, now might be a good time to pull that up because the only other thing I have to talk about is stuff that like isn't related to news cycle and whatnot. Let's pull this up. Let us go to the React Andy mode. Let's do it. Everybody loves himbo content, including me, the himbo himself. React Andy, properties. There we go. Yes. Show. And here it is. Is every movie bombing because of wokeness? Let us find the answer contained in this YouTube video.
The Flash has bombed at the box office. People
That's
just
true.
weren't running to go see it. Elementals has
Damn.
flopped at the box office. Maybe it just didn't spark enough people's interest. Indiana Jones 5, The Dial of Time looks like another movie that is going to lose money for Disney. I guess people just didn't have the time to go see it. And Teenage Kraken did so terribly that it sunk to the bottom of the ocean. And it seems that no one is seeing any other movie that's coming out, aside from Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. But why is this?
By the way, Across the Spider-Verse, probably the wokest fucking movie of 2023. I misspoke last time when I was talking about that in the Map Hat video. It was 2023, not 2022. So, if this guy has any critical thinking metal behind him, I have a feeling I know what this video is going to be about. But it's also possible this is just an incoherent mess. So, we'll see.
Is suddenly happening? It's quite a mystery, and I'm here to figure it out. Oh, I got it. Maybe people are just sick of superhero movies. I mean, they have been making less and less money recently. Maybe people just seen too many, and they just don't want to see any more. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that the one movie that hasn't bombed is a superhero movie. I mean, after all, The Flash was a superhero movie, and it also bombed. I'm 100% sure that the reason why people didn't go see it had everything to do with superhero fatigue, and nothing at all to do with the actor Ezra Miller. I mean, come on, the pandemic just happened. The economy isn't as good as it used to be.
I have
money.
Hold up. I have some thoughts about that. That is a valid thing to point out. Ezra Miller is a fucking monster. But that's not the only reason that the Flash movie did so poorly. The one of the big reasons is because of certain trends that were established in pandemic and post-pandemic movie making. Being the like over reliance on computer graphics, something that's been getting worse for some time, and also like overworking employees and whatever, the lack of a union for VFX workers, whatever. There is a set of surrounding circumstances in movie production that is causing movies to get worse because they are viewed more as generic, safe investments to be made rather than pieces of art to be worked on, produced, and thoroughly like fleshed out with the time and care that you would expect from such an intricate work of art. So in addition to Ezra Miller being a piece of shit, the reason that The Flash did so poorly is because it was a shit movie. If the movie was good and still had Ezra Miller in it, I have no doubt that people would still see it. Maybe not in as large of numbers. But the fact of the matter is the story was a hot mess. The effects were an even bigger hot mess. And that is what was wrong with that movie.
They also realize it's way more convenient to watch a movie while it's on a streaming service than going all the way.
And also the superhero fatigue a bit. Like the one of the things that carried Across the Spider-Verse is that it was a good movie. In addition to it being about superheroes, it was kind of a deconstruction more than a flat like narrative reproduction of the superhero mythos. Because, spoilers for those who haven't seen it, I'm about to spoil Across the Spider-Verse. The bad guy in that movie is Spider-Man. Not Miles, but Spider-Man. Spider-Man is both the good guy and the bad guy in the movie. It fundamentally deconstructs our notion of, like, what is Spider-Man? What is Spider-Man supposed to be? Is this actually helpful? Or are you doing anything good by being this image of Spider-Man? And all that. So that kind of does a bit to get around the superhero fatigue, which is a real thing. But again, I'll just refer back to the fact that The Flash was a pretty shit movie. You know, obligatory CGI baby getting put in the microwave meme.
Way to a theater. I mean, come on, all of them at the same time bombed. Each and every single one of them, as long as we ignore the Spider-Verse movie. People just went to go see that movie in theaters instead of waiting for it to end up on streaming service because, I can't even think of a reason, actually. And come to think of it, aside from the Mario movie, that's the only movie I went to go see this year.
Do the Mario!
Also a knockout success. You know, it might sound a little crazy, but maybe, just maybe, these movies did well at the box office because they were good. What the fuck?
That's crazy,
so
dude.
I've seen a few YouTubers I watch talk about this, even people like Moist Critical, and all of them seem to be missing the answer. It's all because of a little fella named Broke, first name Woke. But hold on there, Just a Robot. You just said
wait a minute.
Spider-Verse did good. Isn't that movie woke? Well,
yes,
I guess it is.
It is.
I mean,
a little. This is the wokest fucking movie that I've ever seen in my life. You could not pick out a woker movie if you tried. You could literally bring Wall Street to the table, and Spider-Man Spider-Verse would still out-woke that shit. Wall Street literally being a movie about the evils of capitalism and how the system is inherently designed to break apart legitimate lines of work, divide the world among rich fucks, and, like, screw over the common working man. It may as well be the Communist Manifesto. All of these guys tried to cancel the movie at first? Exactly. Look, this movie not only has a black protagonist and set of very diverse characters, including including Gwen, who is trans, or at least very heavily implied to be trans in the movie. But it also is, like, incredibly critical of all the power structures that anti-woke people fucking love. It has a lot of feminist undertones. It has, well, not just undertones, tones in general. The fact that fucking Gwen is treated like a person in that movie, by just about everybody, and that she's treated normally, that makes this one of the wokest movies out there. Bechdel test, eat your heart out, whatever. The fact that Hobie Brown fucking exists in this movie, literally, remember in that other video when I was talking about, like, academics pouring in to talk about this movie, that is why. Because, like, this movie was basically just, you put the skin of a Spider-Man story over an incredibly, gripping dance of ideologies between this kid who wants to make the world better and who wants basically a life of freedom for himself, in a way that seems pretty reasonable, I think, to everybody who's watching. And then, like, this spider society that is constructed in a very authoritarian, fascistic sort of way, led by a literal strongman, that manipulates the fears of a young marginalized person in the form of Gwen, and, like, tries to tell Miles that, like, oh, in order to be good, you have to be able to do bad, which is literally a thing that the Nazis believed. The bad guy in this movie is, like, ideologically sort of in line with fascistic narratives that the Nazis heavily relied on, which is not to say that the bad guys in this movie are Nazis. If you asked Miguel O'Hara, he would probably tell you that, yeah, racism is fucking cringe, homophobia is cringe, and whatever, but still, at the core, there's this weird militaristic over-reliance on toxic masculinity and strength and stoicism, and that is the bad guy. So if you're saying that this movie is kinda woke, you've lost the plot. It is the wokest fucking movie that exists probably out there. Except maybe Barbie. But that movie did good too, so. Actually, no, I think this movie... Do you support Trump? No. I do not. he might not actively want me dead like everybody else in the Republican Party seems to, but he would be perfectly willing to abide by my death and others in the queer community if it got him applause from those insane Republicans that do actively want me and other queer people dead. That is my stance on Trump. So, you know, fuck that guy. Let me get back to the video here.
Character is Blaxican, but there's so much
yes.
more to his personality.
Whoa, hold on, get it right, dumbass. He's Puerto Rican.
Just that. He's not just some Gary Stu who's good at everything. Just like Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, Tom Holland Spider-Man, and Man Spider. He had to learn how to use his powers and how to become a true hero.
Now that is a critical misunderstanding, I think, of the movie, especially with the pose that he's doing. Remember I was talking about fascistic military narratives, about the hardness of like being an emotional rock or some shit like that, and stoicism? That's not what the movie's about. The movie is about like Miles' coming of age story and things like that, but it's more about him deconstructing the notion of being a hero, because he looks at all these other Spider-Men and does think that they're heroes, but then he realizes that's not good. Like, what they're doing, while in some ways it might conform to heroic standards, is not good. You know? And I think there was actually the winner.
He had to learn how to use his powers and how to become a true hero.
But also, I do agree that, like, Miles fucks up a lot, and the movie is a lot about Miles learning and becoming more confident. And by the end, you see that. I think there's the real moments, like him standing up sideways on the train, like as it's going up like this, and he stands up on it. He says goodbye, Gwen, or whatever. That's a moment where I think, you know, it kind of snapped for me that, like, oh shit, he is like, he's him. Literally, he's him. Do you think the government kills people that talk about the secrets of the government? No. Usually you just get arrested for that. In the United States, that is. Also, what do you mean by the secrets of the government? You mean, like, classified documents? Like Trump took a shit ton of boxes of classified documents with him to his private estate and like got arrested for it? That's typically what happens. I mean, Trump got off pretty easy in that respect. The government was pretty lenient with him asking for that stuff back. Dr. King was killed just for being a social activist. Yeah, that's true. I think Dr. King, though, he didn't talk about the secrets of the government. All the stuff that he talked about, none of that was a secret. Like oh, state secret in a classified document file. No, what he talked about was systemic injustice that everybody knew existed, but some people didn't want fixed. You know, the reason that Dr. King was viewed as such a threat was because he was talking about that stuff, and more importantly, because he was a competent activist that was capable of galvanizing people behind the issue and threatening existing power structures. Because don't forget, while Dr. King was the anti-racist that everybody rightly remembers him for being, he was also two other things: massively unpopular and a socialist. And that probably, I'm not going to say that like that was a bigger influence, because I highly doubt if it was. I think the biggest thing was that he was a competent activist, and that earned him the ire of the FBI. But certainly him being a socialist was like a significant part in him being assassinated. Ew, Kami? Yeah. Lol. Yeah, certified lol moment. Seriously, you can read some of Dr. King's correspondences, letters, even listen to some of his speeches, and he openly acknowledges the fact that he is in favor of what he calls economic redistributionism, which was sort of a nicer way to put socialist opinions back in the day, because if you were a socialist, you would get arrested, or at least blacklisted from probably most places of work, because, the McCarthyism was still very thick in the air in the 1960s. Anyways, I'm getting off
Hero.
track. Let me get back to
It
the
isn't always easy
video.
balancing your life saving people while also still getting to class on time, along with a whole bunch of other social events. Because he's young, he's left out of the loop, and he has to do what he can to prove himself. And of course, like many versions of Spider-Man, he has to ask himself if what he's doing is the right thing or not. There's also a whole bunch of other races of Spider-Man, but I don't really care. They get just the right amount of screen time, and they're not like
I don't think I necessarily disagree with what he's saying there, but the fact that he phrased it as there's a whole bunch of different races of Spider-Man seems a little bit weird to me. You could have just said there's a whole bunch of different spider people. I don't know. I could be reading too much into that, but that sounded really weird.
lecturing me, aside from that one line from Indian Spider-Man.
Break for a cup of chai with my Maya auntie.
Bro, how are you gonna watch that movie? You don't know this man's name is fuck, I can't pronounce his name. Pravitra. God damn it! You know what? Maybe he was right. Just call him Indian Spider-Man.
Love chai tea. What did you just say? Chai tea. Chai means tea, bro. You're saying tea. Would I ask you for a coffee with room for cream? Oh.
This scene was so cute.
But to be honest, that's a mistake I've made, and I'm glad to be corrected on it. Indian Spider-Man, if you're watching this, I would like to return the favor to you. Use your powers to get rid of the caste system in your country.
Wow, okay, actual racism. Yeah, no, I don't think I need to take anything this guy says especially seriously, except for his Voss recommendation, because that's based. Yeah. Do they even have a caste system in fucking Mumbattan? For all we know, they don't. Indian, haha, that means caste system. Fucking dumbass.
I've also heard arguments that the one white straight male Spider-Man is kind of a loser, especially when you compare.
Also, he's, that guy, oh no! The one white straight Spider-Man is also, it's worth noting that he's Jewish. Peter B. Parker is Jewish Spider-Man, which is very cool to me. Let's actually, I accidentally set it to mini player. I have to fix that in a minute. I don't know if he's going to say that, like, I don't know if he's gonna, like, harp on the fact that, like, oh, they made the one white Spider-Man a loser. But they did and they didn't, right? Here's my thoughts on Peter B. Parker as Spider-Man. Before I even know what this guy's gonna say. I might very well agree with him, who knows. But I do have some thoughts on that since he brings it up. I like the character of Peter B. Parker. I think Hobie calls him humbling reality Spider-Man or something like that. Which is very cute. Ultimately, I think you could make the argument that he is no more a loser. In fact, I think the strongest argument that you could make about that Spider-Man is that he's no more a loser than anybody else in the Spider Society or any other Spider-Man, right? Which is to say, he isn't a loser, but also he is. Because, you know, you can kind of think about it. Every Spider-Man is a little bit of a loser. As in, like, they have a really hard time. Most of them are very socially awkward and kind of outcast. And were sort of, in one way or another, based off the, like, nerdy high school kid archetype. At least, you know, you go back to the original Spider-Man comics and shit. And, you know, you see throughout the movie, he's got a kid. He's got a wife and kid. He's got a family. And he just sort of shows up in his bathrobe and slippers, which I respect the hell out of. And he's also incredibly smart and has probably the best conscience and the best rapport with Miles out of all the Spider-Men. So, like, I feel like the movie doesn't portray him that much as just a loser. And if it does, it's meant to sort of show that, like, yeah, all these Spider people are kind of losers. Who among us is not a loser in some way? It's something like that. I don't know.
Compare him to all the other ones. He's awkward, slower, in a robe, wearing sandals, and carrying a baby around with him.
Bro, you're gonna say that makes somebody a loser? Fuck off. Dude, this is such a surface level critique so far.
I get where those people are coming from, but I do have a few counter.
Oh wait, no, he's arguing against this. Never mind. Okay, yeah. I get where those arguments come from, and they're also stupid, and I don't agree, and I don't respect people who make those arguments. So, El Bozos, I guess. I'll see what this guy has to think about it.
Counter arguments. Number one, he's from the last movie. He was a lesser version of the white straight male Spider-Man from Miles Morales' world.
His name is Penis Parker. Penis P. Parker. Ow, my hand.
The writers didn't make up this character for this movie so they could say, look, every version of Spider-Man is amazing, except for the white male. Also, when all the other Spider-Man are chasing after Miles Morales,
that's right.
He's the first one to catch up to him, and is the only one who tried to talk things out with him. So yeah, one could just as easily make an argument going in the opposite direction. Wow, dude, really? The one white male Spider-Man is the only one who tries to talk things out instead of randomly chasing after him blindly following.
Okay, I see what he's going at. He's deconstructing the, like, woke versus anti-woke idpol arguments, but I think, so, like, he likes this movie, so of course he won't criticize the wokeness. Me? What? I would never. No, yeah, I mean, I'll critique movies that I like, but honest to God, it's hard for me to find flaws in the 2023 Spider-Man movie, apart from maybe the fact that it is still, like, in some ways superhero core. You know? Certainly the way that it portrays the police. Whatever. Look, I'm getting sidetracked. Oh, the one thing I wanted to say about Peter B. Parker, I like that he mentioned that, like, oh yeah, out of all the Spider-Men, Peter B. Parker is the only one that caught up with Miles. He's an already established character, and he's the only one who actually tries to de-escalate the situation and talk to Miles. I guess, you know, this is what I mentioned earlier. He has the best rapport with Miles out of the whole bunch. Is that he is the biggest homie Spider-Man. Outside of maybe Hobie, because Hobie is, Hobie. Yeah, actually, valid point to bring up, that, like, he's actually pretty cool. Peter B, that is. Good try, Yoshi, but I was,
well,
the
it's
better
clear to
driver.
me that this movie is just pandering to MAGA people. I mean, there was also the Black Punk
Nobody made that argument, by the way.
Spider-Man who didn't chase after him, but he kind of just fucked off. But then we have, Jessica Drew Spider-Woman, whose race bent into being black. And just like in the comics, she's pregnant. When she's first introduced in the show, she shows up on a red cool motorcycle.
Okay. This is going to be very difficult because as we've established, I'm not good at distinguishing when he's making fun of an argument or when he's making the argument himself. If he's making this argument, this guy's a retard. But if he's making fun of this argument, I'm going to be willing to hear him out.
Cycle and takes out the villain who was giving the other two versions of Spider-Man a lot of problems. She also seems to be one of the highest ranked Spider people, and when Spider-Gwen meets her, she's completely speechless until she blurts out, "Can you adopt me?" I understand that Spider-Man is a decently strong superhero, but I'm pretty sure even for their level of strength, swinging around and doing all those kicks and flips and other things cannot be good for the baby she's carrying around.
Okay, no, yeah, this is retard shit. The fact that, like, Jessica Drew's Spider-Man does all this, like, yeah, obviously, you know, I did kind of wonder, like, oh shit, you know, she's got a baby in there. I hope the baby's okay, I guess. But, like, all of this is nitpicks. All of this shit is, like, not a real critique of that. Like, oh, they race bent her to be black. Like, okay, they wrote it pretty well in the movie. I didn't even know about Jessica Drew Spider-Woman. And I didn't know that she was white in the comics, unless it's just regular Spider-Woman, in which case I think this is actually a much better written version, at least than the original Spider-Woman. He also provided the defeater for his own argument there. It makes sense that she's here and, like, taking out the villain in this scene, because Miguel called for backup. Initially, Miguel went in alone. It's shown that, like, Miguel is super stubborn, doesn't usually like asking for help, again, because he's an insecure, like, guy that, like, wrestles with toxic masculine tropes all the time. And like, there's that scene where he's bantering with Lila about, like, hey, can you call for backup, please? And then Lila's like, you gotta say it louder. And then when he does call for backup, she shows up. She's, like, Miguel's number two. You know? Like, oh my god, she's black. Okay, and? When I get to a straightaway, I'll unpause. Bro.
In fact, I'm pretty sure she would go from pregnant Spider-Woman to miscarriage Spider-Woman.
It's a girl.
She also becomes the sensei to Spider-Gwen, who constantly sings her praises. Have you seen a lot of the videos on...
No. No, that doesn't happen in the movie. This guy's just doing revisionism. Initially, like, Jessica Drew Spider-Woman, in that movie, is very sympathetic to Gwen, because she probably understands, like, a little bit better than some of the people who've had less direct contact with Gwen, the experiences that she's going through. Keep in mind that Gwen Stacy Spider-Woman, at this point, has, like, basically been completely alienated from her family since, like, her dad, who's a cop, thinks that she killed her, like, her best friend and whatever. And like, she asks, can you adopt me? First of all, it's, like, really cute because she's, like, totally, awestruck by this, this Spider-Woman. But then also because she doesn't have anywhere to go. At the point where, like, Miguel and Jessica Drew are about to leave, she's like, I can't fix this. And then they're like, okay, yeah, join the club. But, you know, Jessica Drew being her mentor and stuff, she is incredibly critical of Gwen. In fact, it almost mirrored, like, when I was watching the movie, it reminded me a little bit of abusive relationship dynamics. Like, oh, I don't know if I can help you. You're falling behind here. I don't know, you know, you might not be welcome in our organization much longer. These are not the mark of somebody who constantly sings the praises of somebody else.
On my channel, especially the ones about Mary Sue's, then you probably think that I really hate this character, right? In a way, yeah.
El Bozo.
But they do have one saving grace. She's not the main character. If she was, this movie would have bombed like all the other ones.
Oh my god. I don't know how much I can actually say about this video, truth be told. Because this guy clearly isn't engaging with things that actually happen in the movie so far. At least not beyond a very surface level.
Yeah, she basically ticks off all of the progressive boxes. She's black, she's a woman, she's pregnant, and every character seems to absolutely...
She's not trans, she's not an anarchist, so not all of the progressive boxes. Dude, okay. This might be why I'm so, feel so weird arguing with this guy's critique of the Spider-Verse, is because he's critiquing the id pole mechanics of the Spider-Verse, right? Like, I'm not very id pole pilled. Like, I don't care that much that there's a prominent Spider-Woman who's black and also pregnant. I mean, I figure that, like, yeah, wow, I don't know, just hit the randomize button, whatever. It seems like they did a good job with that character. But, like, everything this guy says is very, like, anti-SJW coded. It's very bizarre, and I'd much rather be talking about... I'd rather be talking about actual things in the movie rather than the race of the Spider-Woman, honestly. You clear this corner? No, presume.
...really love her, but she's clearly not the only one who's competent.
Also, the reason that she's not the main character is just because she doesn't have the fucking name recognition of Miles Morales or Gwen Stacy or fucking Peter Parker, right? That's why a movie with her would bomb. This guy's so id-pole pilled that he immediately thinks, oh, a black woman who's pregnant? Yeah, this movie would bomb if she was the main character. Not pausing for a fucking second to critically analyze why somebody would be the main character of a movie versus why somebody wouldn't. And realizing that, like, oh, wait, this is actually retarded. No writer in Hollywood, because writers in Hollywood, believe it or not, are competent and know how to write, for the most part. No writer in Hollywood would do that. Like, fucking id-pole shit, that usually isn't part of the decision-making on movies like this, when we're talking about, like, who's the protagonist and whatever. Usually it's like, oh, does this work with the story, right? Is this good writing here? Like, obviously, I'm not a professional writer, but like there was never, he's shadowboxing right now, and he's like, oh, good thing she wasn't the main character. It's like, okay, nobody ever was going to make that the case.
In fact, there are several other versions of Spider-Man in this movie who are just as competent as her. Because she's off to the side and barely in this movie, she doesn't ruin it for me. The mythical quote-unquote modern audience gets what they want.
Dude, fuck this. Oh my god. I can't engage with this.
I get what I want, a good movie. And
also the implication that you can't have a good movie if there's a black woman as the main lead. Very cool. Very, not retarded of you. Thank you.
every cop in this movie isn't portrayed as a bad person, according to my progressive...
True, actually. I like that of the movie, because there's a substantial difference between, like, being critical of the police and being critical of every single cop. In fact, that's one of my critiques of the movie, is that it's not critical enough of the police as a concept, as like an institution, whatever. Although they do hint at it. You know, obviously it's like, it does a lot for the quality of the movie that, like, the cops are also people that you in some sense sympathize with and stuff like that. This guy sounds pretty progressive usually. He's just brain dead on wokeness. I wouldn't be so surprised. There are a lot of people who sort of consume the right-wing slop that's fed to them, even unknowingly. This guy might just be part of those, part of that group of people. You know, it's kind of a trend within a trend. You know, there's a significant subset of the anti-SJW crowd from the 2010s that if you did, like, genuinely have a conversation with them and try to engage with them on like the issues that progressives and leftists actually care about, you'd probably find a lot of agreement. But that, like, they've seen enough buzzwords and enough, like, Fox News articles and enough I don't know, I don't fucking know what right-wing people like have in their media sphere. They've seen enough of the right-wing slop that their brain sees the buzzword and it gets instantly activated. I don't think he's racist. I just think he's anti-woke. I think that he is both racist and not racist for the things that he's saying in this video. If I had a serious conversation with this guy, right, it's entirely possible we would agree, excuse me, on a lot of issues. But the way that he's talking about black characters and ethnically diverse characters in movies is racist, because he is making it about their ethnicity and saying that I am glad this person is not the lead because they are black and I don't want to see that. Or rather, modern audiences or like audiences in general don't want to see that. He's projecting his internalized racism outward. Am I going to fault him for this? Partially, because I think it's the duty of every American, patriotically so, to not be a retard. But also, it's very hard to not be a retard when a lot of the stuff in the mediascape is just, like, right-wing bullshit. I don't know. I think I can kind of call it a wash. You know? Because when right-wingers say woke, what they mean is black people, right? Like, all of the like, in 2022 and 3, all the, like, right-wing content creators that were like, oh, this movie's woke, and, like, like, some of the Disney remakes, this movie's woke because a woman is the protagonist. This movie's woke because a black girl is the protagonist. This movie's woke because a black person is the protagonist. And that's ultimately what the critique boils down to.
Handbook, you have to like Miles' dad because he's black, but you also have to hate him because he's a cop. So I guess they both cancel each other out.
What? I actually lost this guy's train of thought. I don't think he even knows what his train of thought is at this point, because he's talking about wokeness and shit.
He's black, but you also have to...
Here, hold on.
According to my progressive handbook, you have to like Miles' dad.
Damn, they make those? Shit. Dude, if we all had a progressive handbook, the movement would actually go way smoother. Instead, there's like a billion different subsections of progressivism that are all like hyper-fragmented Twitter communities that obsess over purity testing and shit.
Dad because he's black, but you also have to hate
Yep, see, there's the racism at play.
him because he's a cop. So I guess they both cancel
Is he automatically goes to race when he is talking about this stuff.
out. Gwen's father is also a pretty great cop. He's too honorable to break the oath he took, but he's not willing to go through with something that he thinks is wrong. So he quits the force. This movie has something for left-wing people and right. wing people in it, but people went to go see it and
Honestly, that's true. It is Gamergate brain, but I do agree with, like, you know, this is an intelligent marketing strategy. Is that let's be real, the politics of this movie are not very far below the surface in the slightest, but they are enough, like, they are plausibly deniable enough that, like, a right-wing person that isn't insane, a much more rare sight these days, increasingly so, could theoretically enjoy this movie, you know, and like, even on some sort of imagined political agreement here, like, hey, not all cops are bad people, which, by the way, is something that you as a left-wing person should agree with, because it is not the inherent character of somebody that makes them bad, but rather the material circumstances around them and the institutions that shape them into who they are. For example, the reason we say ACAB is because not every cop is necessarily a bad person, but as a product of being a cop, they're molded into a worse person than they would be otherwise. There's a reason that a lot of cops are domestic abusers, and the reason that a lot of cops struggle with mental health issues, and that is because of two things. First, the police does kind of pre-select for people who will be like that. That's sort of a feedback loop. But then also because the way that police are trained instills constantly a sense of paranoia and shit like that, where even if you were to fill a police department with the best people that you could find, most upstanding moral character, it would produce the same shit outcomes as a lot of other police systems. Granted, the outcomes would not be as bad, but the flaw in policing is fundamentally it's the system itself. It's not the people. So good and bad people is a very lib-brained and Gamergate-brained assumption that this guy is making.
enjoyed it for one simple.
But I've gone on long enough on this tangent. I accidentally forwarded and then went backward too far through the video.
But he's not willing to go through with something that he thinks is wrong. So he quit and to go see it and enjoyed it for one simple reason. It's because it was good. Just because a movie.
And there you go. That's all you need to say about this movie. Like, oh yeah, much has been made about this movie. I went and enjoyed it for one reason, and that's because the movie was good. There you go. Easy and agreeable.
Movie has a small handful of woke moments in it, does not make it woke to me. I'm still going to enjoy Invincible despite Amber being in it. But what about the other movies?
Okay, I have some comments on that. Hold on. First of all, the entire movie is woke. Let's not kid ourselves here. I mean, we've established that this guy is politically incoherent and politically illiterate, but the whole fucking movie, I've explained why it's woke. To use that term. First of all, because it has black characters, and as we know, woke is when black people. But then also, like I said, because of all the political tones present about anarchism, leftism, and the role of the state in people's lives, and the kind of, fascism and militarism that certain artifices of the state subjects people to. Gay people also, yes, that's right. Queer people also, big presence in the movie. I know that Miguel certainly turned a fair few people gay from watching that movie, so that's pretty woke, I think. But yeah, ultimately the movie is woke, and maybe not in the sense that, like, look, I don't know. I have a hard time engaging with the word woke, I'll be real, because it doesn't fucking mean anything. It means whatever right-wingers and the point they're trying to make assumes and needs it to mean, which is usually just that black people exist. So I guess I'll just leave it at, the movie was good, we agree on that, and it was good because of the woke stuff, and not despite it, because, being woke means you're not asleep or something. Look, I have lost the plot as well. This guy's brain retardation has spread to me. This is a contagious disease. I do need medical help.
Have you seen my video for why allegories for discrimination don't work? Then I think you have a pretty good idea of what the big problem with this movie. It
does work, though. Oh, also, citing your own videos. Definitely a great indication of somebody that should be taken seriously. No. I have not seen that video. I will never watch that video. Your point, therefore, is not made. You have to actually make it. El Bozo, you are wrong. I will not elaborate. Please show me data or some shit. I don't know. I can't engage with this because there's nothing here to engage with. Ultimately, this argument that he's making about
While
like
there
the
are slight
allegory for
differences
discrimination.
between the races, like white people needing more sunscreen and black people needing more conditioner, they're not as different as fire and water. Like in my allegories for discrimination video, I said if I was running a store,
yeah.
I would probably refuse service to a guy with fire powers who could burn it down. In this world, fire
Probably
people
true,
are also
honestly.
refused service from some locations because they can burn things down. And this is not just a stereotype. We see it at multiple points in the movie. But the people who refuse them services are painted by the film as being unreasonable.
I can't speak to that movie because I don't watch that movie. My entire life is not about Disney movies. It's entirely possible that that movie was a bad allegory for discrimination. That actually went to justify that discrimination. Sometimes this happens and this backfires, where it's like they make groups of characters different enough that the discrimination would be justified, and then they say, but you still shouldn't discriminate against those people. And this underlies a significant liberal assumption that progressives and you know socialists do not make, which is that like racism is like fundamentally in the self-interest of the racial power group. It is not. Don't get me wrong on this. White people in a white supremacist system, right? You know, the system has white people on top of the racial hierarchy, as it were. White people are better off in that system than black people. But because the system focuses on that racial hierarchy, because there is a racial hierarchy, everybody is detrimented by the existence of that system. If that hierarchy were eliminated, then people in general like would be allowed to pursue more opportunity in life and things like that. It is patently in everybody's interest for racism to be eliminated because it also hurts, at least theoretically speaking, white people. You know, it's the same thing with men and women in sexism. Sexism also hurts men. Sexism against women doesn't just hurt women, it also hurts men. Because a lot of the sexism eventually comes back to bear in the environments where it wouldn't just be a question of, like, oh, do I hire a man or a woman for this role? But now, like, the part where everybody has to deal with the consequences of those decisions. Just to give an example, like, if there is a company that produces a certain thing that is looking for applicants for a certain role, and they hire a man over a woman who would have been more qualified for that role. Let's say, you know, maybe this woman has a better resume or just as good a resume or something like that, but for some like internalized misogyny or whatever, they go with the male candidate. Especially, you know, this is the case in the gaming industry. This is a pretty big problem. A worse game will be made as a result of picking a less talented person, or a less skilled, less fitting person for the role, and that harms everybody. And it also potentially can harm people who are not as qualified for the role, might not know as much what they're doing. There's some theoretical literature on this, I'm pretty sure, but like suffice it to say, it's very possible to make a sloppy and bad allegory for discrimination in a movie, or that as the premise for a movie. But the fact that you could use something like allegory of discrimination as the premise for a movie is not itself a flaw. It's just a thing that can be done correctly and badly. I got lower air off that.
Huh?
So, like, actually, let me bring it back to the movie he's talking about, where it's like, oh, people who have the power to like burn your whole shop down or discriminate against because they have the power to burn your whole shop down. That justifies the discrimination in the context of the movie. Like, if it's the case that like maybe they can't control this firepower or whatever, then shop owners theoretically would be justified in saying we can't accommodate you in the physicality of the shop and whatever. But that is a very sloppy and I think dangerous allegory to make to discrimination in real life, where fundamentally there are no differences between people. Like he said, some people might need a different kind of conditioner, some people might need more sunscreen. Fundamentally, everybody's a person who can more or less have the same degree of accommodation, short of some sort of physical disability, and whatever that might make things a little bit harder. But it's not something that would cause a genuine harm to business to accommodate like racial minorities.
Agree that we should do what we can to get along with one another, but allowing those people inside certain places would completely destroy the economy. In the movie Zootopia, despite how different all the animals were to one another, the city's infrastructure still did its best to accommodate each and every single one of them.
Oh yeah, there we go. This is actually a good example of like a movie that does an allegory to like race politics in some ways. Maybe not in other ways. But yeah, the fact that this city has like the infrastructure to accommodate people who are a lot more different than like in the real world and whatever, because they're anthropomorphized animals and stuff. Accurately described as furry bait, I guess. Yeah, okay. I think I agree with that, actually. But, this is that same allegory that he was saying is, like, always drags down a movie, done well. So it's like an example of how that's not actually a correct thing to say, necessarily.
It's a place that seems to make sense. In Elementals, there's literally a water train that goes over Firetown. But Jar, it's supposed to represent how they're not all treated as equal. Okay, factories that spew out toxic chemicals being near neighborhoods where black and brown people live is by no means no way near something like this.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, I'll eat my words on some of the stuff I had to say, like, or not necessarily eat my words, but like, yeah, I'm willing to fully agree with them on this point. Like, you just brought up a very real example of racism in the modern world. This is like, factories near marginalized communities like are a fucking blight on society and shit like that. And this is a really bad comparison to that real world phenomenon. Maybe this is what you were talking about when you're like, yeah, this guy is progressive, but for some reason like leans in on the anti-woke stuff.
There's no real-world equivalent of a train just dumping acid on people. Apparently the guy who made this film no means no way near something like this.
This what argues against wokeness progressively. I think it's funny because some of the arguments he provides against wokeness are just arguments against progressivism, but then he, in a way more coherent fashion, just delivered like a 5-second argument about like how to correctly like the correct kind of progressive themes to depict in a movie. They're fundamentally contradictory positions, but I'll take a W where I can find it. Oh yeah, I was gonna say the whole like train driving by a marginalized community and just dumping acid. I think this was recorded before the East Palestine incident, maybe, because what he's describing about a train going by and dumping a bunch of chemicals on a like very out of the way community did happen. Wasn't like a racially marginalized community or whatever. Like wasn't a predominantly black community, but. East Palestine train derailment, fucking dumped chemicals all over the place. East Palestine, very poor town. And, government just kind of overlooked it, just covered that shit up and moved on. And that is an example of systemic... I don't want to call it systemic classism. It's just fucking oppression, blanket oppression, fucking bullshit. Yeah. So, he might have spoken too soon, I'm not sure.
Black and brown people live is by no means no way near something like this. There's no real-world equivalent of a train just dumping acid on people.
Okay, yeah, this one. There is a real-life equivalent. They theoretically, they didn't do it on purpose, but, like, they had the means to prevent it, the East Palestinians, whatever. This is a tangent, and I don't
Apparently the guy who
think
made
directly
this
relevant to the
film was
argument.
a Korean immigrant, and this was his passion project. It was something he was dreaming about making for a long time. and
Okay,
it was
look.
probably very close to his heart. But I still have to say that out of any
And here's the racism bit again. Like, is it valid to critique the filmmaker of a certain movie? Yes, especially if the movie's not all that good. But like, why do you bring up that like, oh, he's a Korean immigrant? Like, that's the first thing he brought up is like, this guy's a Korean immigrant. Like, I don't know, I feel like I'm just gonna say the same thing over and over again. But this guy like really just completely incoherent. Because he made a good argument about, like, you know, what does racism actually look like here in a systemic sense? Like, if you wanted to make an allegory towards discrimination and racial politics in the modern world. But then he said, oh, yeah, this Korean filmmaker made such a bad movie. It's like, what the fuck?
allegory for discrimination that I have seen from anything. This is by far the absolute worst one. By far. Nothing else comes close. I want to make it clear that this is not a terrible movie, but it isn't really a good movie either.
Although it is possible, I should mention, not that it actually necessarily reflects on the guy that made this movie. The Korean, Korean American community is pretty damn racist. For whatever reason, a lot of Asian Americans and a lot of Hispanic Americans are really fucking racist against black people. And I think that has to do with, it could have to do with a couple of things. For Asian Americans, I think, if I'm remembering history right, it's something about like model minority stuff. And then with Hispanic Americans, it might be some sort of like aspirational model minority status. I don't know. Like, obviously this doesn't reflect on the character of any one of the like the people in that community, but there's some weird shit goes on in those in the racial politics of America.
It's just okay, but a movie with a higher budget than the Mario movie.
Yeah, exactly. They succeed, so why can't black people type of shit. Yeah.
And the Spider-Verse movie combined can't just be okay. It has to be great. It's just another movie with a story that you have heard a dozen times over, that is more focused on preaching to you than telling a coherent story. As for Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken, well,
again, haven't seen the
despite
movie.
how big a hit Puss in Boots 2: The Last Wish
I need to see this movie, Puss in Boots 2. I need to see that shit.
was, people know all too well that DreamWorks movies are either hit or miss. For every Kung Fu Panda 2, Shrek 2, or How to Train Your Dragon 2, there's also a Trolls, Home, or Shark Tale. Here's some
That's true.
friendly advice, DreamWorks.
Although I do think it's a massive credit to DreamWorks that they even have that many bangers to their name. You know? I watched some clips on TikTok and I liked Elementals from what I saw. TikTok clips, excuse me, can give certain impressions. I have no intention of like watching that movie because I don't feel any particular attachment to the concept or whatever. I have no real drive to see it. I don't know if it's very good or very bad. I haven't heard great things about it, so that leads me to believe that it's probably not that good. But I have, what I did want to say about movies that I have seen from DreamWorks. DreamWorks is one of the few studios whose movies I will occasionally revisit, that are like kids movies, but I still enjoy because they are, like, they're not just good kids movies, they're good movies. Like, Shrek is one of those that revolves a lot around, your self-image and, stuff like that. Body image and things. And, you know, making fun of a short, like, feudal lord doesn't hurt. That's pretty funny. DreamWorks just makes some good stuff, man.
pretty good at making sequels. Maybe make one
They've
of
made bad
Megamind,
stuff, but they make
Rise
good
of the
stuff, too.
Guardians, or hell, maybe even Ants. When I heard lines in the trailer like, the women in our family have the power to turn into Krakens. Really? Just the women, not the men as well? Or the love interest being black? I'm not gonna lie, I got a little nervous until I realized this
Dog.
was a Disney movie. Something like this from the House of Mouse would have filled me with fear.
Do I even need to address this? I feel like you already know what I'm going to say because I've said it several times. Oh no, I saw a black character and got worried that the movie wasn't going to be good. That's just racism. That's just being racist.
But DreamWorks is a company that I have way more faith in.
Black people, so scared. Yeah, and like, look, I won't lie. There are some, there are movies that prominently feature black characters that I saw and didn't think would be that good when they eventually came out. Like the Little Mermaid movie, I saw and thought like this probably isn't going to be any good. The reason I thought that was not because I saw there was going to be a black main character, for fuck's sake. The reason I thought that was because of other things that were present in the movie trailers, namely the super washed out color scheme for what was originally supposed to be a very colorful story for kids to watch. And then also like the fact that it was one of those live action remakes that doesn't have a great track record of succeeding and all that. I think we're a bit more charitable. He may just think that Disney treats black characters poorly. That is true. Disney does have a reputation of treating black characters poorly, but it's not the race of a character is not the determinative factor there. Like if we're going by the same logic, right? Then oh god, what's a good Disney movie? But I'm now struggling now that I can't remember any Disney movies. But like by that same token, there could be a movie that ends up being good that you initially treat with that skepticism because it has a black character and it like turns out it was completely unfounded. You just look stupid and racist. You know? I think what we need to be taking away here is not just that Disney treats black characters poorly, but that Disney treats characters poorly. Disney doesn't make that many good movies nowadays because they're a gigantic fucking too big to fail corporation. He said he has more faith in the movie since Disney isn't making it and trusts the other company to make better movie without with a black main character. Then he shouldn't have mentioned the fact that the main character is black because that's not relevant to his concern. His concern is the quality of movies that Disney makes. He should be concerned when he sees the Disney logo, not when he sees a black character. The fuck? But I do agree that, like, you know, you're going to be skeptical of Disney. Be skeptical of Disney. They do some really, really bad shit in the way that they make movies. Like, not just unethical shit. We know every fucking company in the world does some insanely unethical things. But, like, I mean just, like, bad filmmaking. You know? If we're thinking about, I don't know, Pixar, DreamWorks, or whatever. Maybe I'm just a bit too charitable. Maybe. That's possible. Everybody died on that section, it looks like. But I am alive.
But there was nothing in the trailer that really caught my interest. It was another generic teenage story that we've heard dozens of times over. Now I'm sure if the love interest...
Then he should have led with that. The fuck? I'm not gonna get... I don't want to get too hung up on this.
was
I got
right,
blue
or the mother said the people in our family have the power to turn into giant krakens, that this movie would have still bombed at the box office. I think a few people might have mistook this for a Disney movie and decided not to go see it. But even then, I think it would have only made a couple tens of $1,000s more, which in terms of the box office is basically nothing.
Yeah, it's not
Whether
much.
a movie is woke or not is not really the big issue here. A movie just...
Oh. Well, then we agree, I guess. I guess I don't even need to watch the video. Nah, I'll keep watching. In fact, I'm probably gonna have the stream go a little bit longer than usual because I'm watching this. I don't want to do the two-part thing like I did with the that debate looked at a little while ago.
It just had nothing to offer. And as for the flash bombing, well, I guess most DC movies haven't really been doing that well as of late.
That's
but
true.
Ezra Miller
That's more of a
Flash
DC
probably didn't
problem.
help. I have a whole video about
Also
this if you want
true.
more information. To make a long story short, Hollywood seems to have this insistence on working with this.
He makes the anti-woke content with a progressive lens. Yeah, it seems so. You know what? Honestly, honest to God, I think there's a place for this guy on the internet that's like really interesting, because like, let's be clear here. I do think this man is on some retard shit and that his political views are incoherent, right? But is this like a slight towards his character necessarily? No. You know, even the stuff that he's saying that like is racist, I think that's just motivated from some general like internet era reactionism. I don't think this guy's actually that racist, no more than like your average person, which is to say not very. And like, this could actually, videos like this could actually be used as a very useful tool to like get people who used to engage a lot with anti-SJW stuff to start thinking more critically about media. Because this guy, for all of the like random anti-SJW bullshit he said in the video, has introduced some genuinely like, there's some nuggets of like god tier arguments about what makes a movie good versus what doesn't. And I think if people come away with that as the main takeaway, as he seems to be emphasizing here, then yeah, I think that's good. And this guy is, you know, if he can just maintain all of his most of his thought process on like movie reviews and stuff to be more like that, you know. Yeah. Probably why after watching him religiously, I managed to go more progressive than left or right wing after that. Yeah, you know, maybe that is the case. Maybe, you know, maybe I'm being a little harsh. Yeah, no. I mean, if this guy's a anti-woke, anti-SJW progressive who will argue against systemic discrimination, but occasionally says this movie's woke because it has a black character in it, I mean, I'll take it. You know what? Fuck it. You know. World's weird enough. This is like one of the most normal things I've seen recently. Even the fact that he has a rant sona.
It's horrible.
Which is cringe, unless you make your rant sona a hot furry guy, in which case, cool.
Person will also
He's also a Bernie bro? My man.
refusing to work with people like Johnny Depp. I don't know why they just had to have
It's like the fucking Aquaman scene. The Justice League says, my man.
this guy play the Flash. I'm pretty sure the guy who played him in the TV show would have asked for less money. But once again, I already did a video about
Probably
this, so
true.
if you want more information, go check that out. I don't want to annoy my subscribers by going over a topic I very recently made a video on. So, sorry that this section
enough.
of the video is very short. But this is also not an example of get woke, go broke. Sure, Ezra Miller goes by they, them pronouns, and also sometimes uses woke talking points. But
Okay, we're back to retard shit. I don't know what he's talking about here.
everything else they do is not really woke. In fact, in some ways, I say it's the opposite. But now we're getting to the big one. Indiana Jones 5, The Dial of Time.
Okay, my understanding of the Indiana Jones movie, they, them equals woke? Yes, and I am woke because I use any and all pronouns, the most woke. My understanding of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny was that it was basically Indiana Jones and the movie studios and Harrison Ford won another paycheck or some shit like that. Just like a nothing movie. Like every time I see a like a remake of an existing IP in the theater, I have all the woke. Actually, I am the CEO of woke. If anybody claims to be woke or to be a progressive, you have to ask me if they're really progressive. I get to say that. I get to say so on that. But yeah, what I understood about the Indiana Jones movie that he's about to talk about here is that it was pretty shit. And like it basically was just a cash grab by like studio execs and like I don't know. It just the same shit you like we see with a lot of movies that get remade just because they were profitable the first time, so let's just keep, you know, wringing that cash cow dry and stuff like that. Any or all woke, actually. Fuck, that's so true. Now you're the CEO of wokeness. You know what? No, never mind. I'm taking that title back. It's too funny that I am both both Flat Earth Dennis's favorite racist and also the CEO of wokeness. That's too funny for me to not pass up. I need both of those at the same time. Can't just have one or the other. Let's keep going here.
Across the Spider-Verse had a budget of $100 million. Elementals had a budget of $200 million. Flash also had a budget of $200 million.
Oh yeah, this is one thing I've noticed about movies, and this is a fucking, like, awful trend in Hollywood, is that budgets keep ballooning. Like, you could go back to the 1980s and 90s, like, before CGI was really prominent in the movie making industry to the degree that it is today. Budgets, you could adjust them for inflation, and budgets would have been lower on average. And even the high budget movies would be, like, cost less money than the high budget stuff today does. And that's because, like, nowadays, a lot of the executives and the producers and whatever will just shunt a lot of the work down to the VFX artists, because they're one of the only major industries within Hollywood that doesn't have a union. They're not unionized, so they can't really bargain for really good working conditions. And as a result, like, they keep getting overworked, underpaid, and like, basically slop gets put out for fucking massively expensive price tags, because it does cost a lot of money, believe it or not, to hand all that work to the VFX artists, as opposed to, like, planning it out beforehand and doing it with practical stuff, or with storyboarding, costume design, and all that. This is a tangent, but, like, you know, that is one of the very worrying trends in movie making, and I don't like it. I don't like how big the budgets have become, because now it sort of disincentivizes a degree of creativity that every movie just needs to be a return on investment. And of course, that's an inherent feature to capitalism. All of this is exploitation inherent to capitalism, when like, so few people own all of the whole, like, every stage of production. But it really like, results in worse movies. The fact that so few people are giving themselves so much money, and, like, allocating resources so inefficiently and stupidly that like, they need to make an ungodly amount just to break even, and that results in worse products. Like, seriously, it does. You can look back at the price tags that movies used to have. You know, it didn't used to always be like this.
Ruby Gilman, Teenage Kraken.
I bet you're a bigger racist than just a robot. Probably. If woke meant going broke, they wouldn't make woke movies. That's true. You know, go woke, go broke has always been a bullshit talking point, because woke movies that people call woke keep getting made. So that's what's making the money. Because that's the only motivation that Hollywood executives, fucking ghouls that they are, have in mind. They have no respect for the actual art and talent that goes into making a film. All they care about is that paycheck. So if something makes money, they're going to keep doing it. And believe it or not, the sort of there is a disingenuous level of progressivism that is occasionally present that you can't really get away with, because people can kind of see through it. But, like, you know, progressivism in movies, at least being able to not have your movie just be full of, like, crotchety old white guys and whatever, you know, that does make money, and that's you know, that pays off. And so that's why the Hollywood executives are okay with it. A lot of those guys are fucking racist themselves. But it is also just, like, something that people generally like seeing in a movie, because like, you can't really get away with a movie that's all white people anymore. Because now there's like, black people go to the movies. Many such cases. I'm back. We are so back. Nobody can even believe how back we are. Sorry, the anti-woke police got me. thing I'm confused the most is how can he be anti-woke and a Has-Been Hotel fan? Actually, good point. Has-Been Hotel is not just woke, it is incredibly horny. I know this because I think I've seen some Hell of a Boss, and I think that's the same artist, and that person draws stuff incredibly horny. Anyways, let me get back to that video. I'm not gonna end stream until I'm done with this video, so I want to get done with it.
$1 million. But this movie had a budget of $300 million.
Oh,
well,
Jesus.
Disney seems pretty confident
That's
in this
so
film.
bad.
And I'm sure out of the 4 films...
No, they're not confident. $300 million investment is not necessarily a badge of, like, artistic confidence. It's the whole, like, oh, this is one of our best intellectual properties, so we're going to invest a lot of money into it to make a lot of money, hopefully.
Films I have talked about, the most woke won't end up being the most broke. I mean, Indiana Jones is a pretty big IP. Not as big as Spider-Man, but that...
Also, the original Indiana Jones is very woke. That Lithuanian CIA? No, you got it wrong. It was the anti-woke police. You see, I was too woke. I'm actually on good terms with the Lithuanian CIA, you see. I had to contact my handler to get them to cut off the anti-woke police, give them the memo that I'm okay because I'm Flat Earth Dennis's favorite racist. Yeah.
That film did really good. I mean, if one film based on a big IP did good, then this one
he's really teeing it up here.
Right? Let me give Mickey a call real quick and ask him something.
Nokia, whoa.
Hey, Mickey, are you there? I just gotta ask you something. Oh, hey, Jar. I'm about to jump off a building.
What? I blinked. I missed it. What? Damn, #1 racist, owner of wokeism, and the best Lithuanian CIA propaganda spreader. That's me, baby. That's fucking right. I'm putting all that on my resume.
So please, make it quick. Again, this is like the 3rd time this week.
Please,
I'm just
please
curious
stop.
as to how your Indiana Jones movie did. Lucas,
There's a Hassan bit? Never mind, I love this movie now.
It's just not worth anything anymore.
Live Hassan
I'm just
reaction.
gonna sell it back to George Lucas. Mickey, hello? You there?
Unironically, I think for how bad George Lucas was at writing dialogue, I think George Lucas having more like directorial control over his movies would be for the better. I think like Star Wars and Indiana Jones would do a lot better if he was still, or someone like-minded to him was directing those movies. The issue was just that I think George Lucas needed like a team of writers to make sure he wasn't writing the most cringe shit imaginable. Anyways.
Probably in a place with bad service.
Yeah, okay.
So was Indiana Jones 5, The Dial of Time, a success? No. But was it?
No. Grossed $368 million on a $295 million budget. That's like... I think that's like kind of a wash, right? A movie needs to make like... I don't think it's twice as much as its price tag suggests, right? So like a 300 million movie doesn't need to make 600 million, but it does need to make like 400 million, 450 million to break even and make a little bit of money. 368 million on a 295 million budget for a movie is definitely not what you want to see if you're making the movie or if you're like in charge of the financial decision making. So yeah, pretty cringe, I guess. Cringe movie.
Woke. Well, Disney made this movie, so what do you think? Yep, just like how now
maybe?
the Force is female, or how Willow is female for some reason. Indiana Jones is now also female-led. I really don't understand Kathleen Kennedy's strategy of taking a male-led franchise and, you know, making...
Oh, the Kathleen Kennedy strategy. Okay, Kathleen Kennedy gets a lot of shit because I don't think she's a very good writer on her own. But the reason that she got shit for Star Wars The Last Jedi first is because she's a woman, many such cases. But then secondly is because for Star Wars, the Star Wars sequels, right? I've come around on those movies. I don't think they're that good. Except for the Last Jedi, I will defend as being a good movie and actually like worth engaging with. one of the things that really sunk that trilogy was the fact that it wasn't just Kathleen Kennedy writing things. It was like a committee. There was like a committee of writers. They almost handled it like it was corporate decision making in writing those movies. And that's why so many things were either just plain bad or did not age well upon like second and third viewings. It was like, it was almost like kind of writing the slop content, but that was like an early form of that in the movies. At least the like 2010s post-internet sort of slop content. That's always been the case, that there have been like cheesy B-movie stuff and whatever. But yeah.
Character, like
whoa,
taking a male-led franchise and, you know, making a Mary Sue the main character. Like, do you think in an alternate dimension there...
Making a Mary Sue the main character, you mean a woman? You know, in I think they like, he needs to explain like why the character in Indiana Jones was actually like not a great lead, I think. Because look, the reason that that The Force Awakens wasn't like as good as New Hope or whatever is not the Mary Sue stuff, believe it or not. Luke is a Mary Sue. He's a Mark Sue or like whatever the fuck. He's the male equivalent of that, but nobody gives him shit for it. That's not ultimately not the reason that Force Awakens was bad, because they do have some like justifying ground for Rey to be able to do the things that she does. How does she know mechanics so well? Oh, well, she's a scavenger. She had to do that to survive. And, you know, she's coming from pretty dire circumstances and whatever. Is it possible to write characters like that poorly? Yeah, sure it is. But, like, I think because the label gets thrown around so flippantly by anti-SJW types, I would appreciate an explanation of like, what he means in this instance. So. Once I hit the cannon here, I'll resume the video.
There's a guy named Carl Kennedy who's running a whole bunch of girl-led shows, and in each and every single one of them, he's making a brunette British man the main character. And by the way, each of these new male main characters are better at everything than everyone else. As if it wasn't enough for Harrison Ford's character, Han Solo, to play second fiddle to a woman.
Hey, Han, I know this is your...
Well, hold on a second. That's just fucking, like... That's just fucking 1960s ass sexism. Damn, I can't believe they made a man play second fiddle to a woman. Like, what? Dude, I was even ready to agree that, like... Yeah, okay, you know, if they introduce a bunch of characters that are sort of unexplained, like, good at all this shit, or like, you know, they violate a lot of character-building tropes and trends and whatever, then, like, yeah, that's not good. But then he's like, and they had to ruin it by putting a woman in charge. Like, what the fuck? God damn, he shot his own point in the foot so hard with this one.
Been on for years, but I just fixed a problem with it.
I'm dead.
I bypassed the compressor my first day flying on it, or any ship for that matter.
Oh man, you're so brilliant.
Also, it's implied that like Han also knows that, but like it just took a little bit longer to figure it out. I think they explain in the movie that like, oh yeah, somebody else installed this thing. Like, it wasn't there before. Somebody else put it on here, and then Rey just, like, ripped it out. I don't know.
Brilliant and smart. Want a job? You're nothing like that one whiny farm boy I met on another desert planet, but not the same desert planet.
They also had to do it to Harrison Ford's most beloved character. Now, I'm not going to go over...
Now, hold on. I don't think you can fairly make the argument that Harrison Ford was more beloved as Indy than as... fucking Han Solo in Star Wars. I think this is, you know, one of those IPs is a bit more popular. But yeah, this is actually, I think The Force Awakens is actually not a great example of the Mary Sue tropes, because it's kind of explained why Rey is good at the things that she's good at. And this is also like, this is just her being quicker than Han, not necessarily being smarter. You know, he doesn't think of this, but like, I'm sure if he had the time, he might have been able to see like, oh yeah, because he knows the ship, but ultimately it hasn't been in his hands for a while, right? This scenario that everybody keeps picking apart makes sense in context. I fucking wish they wouldn't bring this up. There are valid examples to this. This guy literally mentioned one earlier. It was like, oh yeah, they introduce a bunch of like unexplained male characters, like, you know, this British male characters or whatever, that are just better at everything than everybody else. I would love to see that explored, and I would also love to see like if there's an explanation for like, oh yeah, this new female lead somehow knows all her way around like everything. I would love to see that explained too, because like it's entirely possible that those critiques are justified, but he had to pick the one fucking example where it wasn't.
You've been on for years, but I just fixed a problem with it. I bypassed the compressor my first day flying on it, or any ship for that matter.
Oh man, you're so brilliant and smart. Want a job? You're nothing like that one whiny farm boy I met on another desert planet, but not the same desert planet.
They also had...
By the way, this is him like fantasizing about some fucking imagined cuckoldry. Everybody who's a reactionary is like this, right? Oh, you're so much better than this other guy that's like a stand-in for the viewer or whatever. This is fucking cuck fetish shit. Because that interaction doesn't happen. It never happened. And to my knowledge, it never will happen in Star Wars, because that's not the kind of like character conflict that typically exists in that story. It's very weird. Very weird.
To Harrison Ford's most beloved character. Now, I'm not going to go over this film beat by beat. I have another video in the works about the destruction of all the Lucasfilms IPs that Disney has used.
I'm dead.
Way more detail in that video, so I rather not repeat myself too much. Of course, it starts off with Indiana Jones fighting German soldiers from World War II. Yep, YouTube won't let me say the word Yahtzee, but with an N instead of a Y.
Yeah, that's pretty fucked.
For a movie that's rated PG-13,
actually,
just like YouTube.
No, hold on. YouTube will let you say the word Nazi. I say it all the time. You just can't get monetized if you say that word. Valid concern and whatever, for sure. But you know, let's be clear here. Ooh, this route is fun. I need an item box. I need it so badly. There we go.
And no, he doesn't fight these guys in a flashback. He's also fighting them again in 1969. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wasn't America's enemy, communist at the time? Well, the answer is yes. And they were also his enemy in Indiana Jones 4.
Well, now hold on. Hold on a second. I think he's about to bring up the critique of like why is he fighting Nazis in the 60s? On the surface, that might be a valid critique and whatever, right? Nazis were a wartime enemy in the 40s. But here's the thing, right? That doesn't mean that Nazism went away. We're seeing right now, we're having a resurgence of Nazism in the United States and in other countries as well. And there were certainly, like, some, like, small Nazi groups that were active after the war. In fact, there was like, you know, there's a whole controversy about Operation Paperclip, where the US recruited German scientists, many of whom were Nazis. But many of whom also weren't. Yeah, I don't think it's a great idea necessarily to critique the whole, like, the concept of you're fighting Nazis post-World War II. But again, it is possible to do that poorly. We'll see if that gets done poorly, but I don't think there's anything wrong with the concept in itself.
But because communism is considered woke nowadays, we need to have
No, I don't think that's why. I don't think that's why they did that. I think Nazism is a much easier enemy because, frankly, the Nazi atrocities have always been much more visceral than communist atrocities, like from the USSR and whatever. Even if the USSR and China have a much higher body count, but they weren't active wartime enemies of the United States, so that kind of propagandism doesn't work with those usually. And a lot of times when people do movies like that where China and Russia are the bad guys, they dribble into like just straight up racist territory where it's like, oh yeah, all Russians actually are like this, or all Chinese people are actually like this, which is a much more sensitive subject than saying all Germans are like this, because Germans are white people and virtually indistinguishable from insert other white demographic here, whatever. Look, the reason that they didn't go with communists is probably because it was a harder narrative to write and justify as them being like the objective villains than with Nazis. You have to do a little bit more legwork with communists, because they're like, it's hard. It's a little bit difficult to explain, but it is absolutely not because of like, oh, communism is woke now, so they can't do that. No. In fact, if ever there was a time to do that, it would have been with the original Indiana Jones movie. That came out in the 1970s. Or like early 80s. You know? But they went with Nazis instead, because it was a much easier enemy. And to be frank, also, a lot of the people who make a lot of their politics about being anti-communist, like the people who advertise constantly or who will fixate on that as a central political message, are themselves usually Nazis or some stripe of fascist, because the thing that they hate isn't necessarily the thing that they hate is not like the atrocities of the USSR or whatever. They just hate that the USSR, A, wasn't doing that to the Jews, and B, they also hate that, like, they hate that there's like a sort of left-wing idealism that involves including people. That's the part that they hate about it. They hate the good things about communism. They don't hate the bad things that all the communist countries have done. They just wish that they were the ones doing it. Again, with the sort of cuck fetishism. Nazis hyperfixate on communism because communist states have cucked them out of being able to commit mass atrocities on a larger scale.
Indiana Jones keep bashing the fish. Indiana Jones is currently depressed.
Also, yeah, I'm not gonna get upset. By the way, this guy, like, if you step back and look at what this guy is saying or think about it, it is really weird that he's upset that fascists are the bad guy in a movie. Like, okay, would you rather fascists be not the bad guy? Like, if you're gonna have fascists in your movie, right? Wasn't Stalin planning to attack Jews before his death? Planning? I mean, the USSR already had deported a lot of Jews to Siberia. You know, it wasn't just a plan in the works. But yes, I don't doubt that.
Why? Because his son is dead. Wait, what? And his wife has divorced him as well. But
I'm going to skip this part because I don't trust him to accurately summarize a movie that he doesn't like. I don't think that's especially one that I have literally no idea about. Elementals, what was it, Elementals? The one with the fire people, the water people, whatever. That I had heard some things about. This I literally know nothing, so I'm gonna skip. Skip. Why no one wasted time on Indiana Jones 5? Probably because it was bad. And this guy says, actually because it was woke and bad. But, you know.
I almost forgot. Some people said that Transformers: Rise of the Beauty and the Beast was also a bomb.
Rise of the Beauty and the Beast. Very true.
Domestically, yes, it didn't do so hot. But worldwide, it just managed to break even. Transformers is one of the very few franchises that can still be a success, even if it doesn't do good domestically. It had a budget of 195 to 200 million. And it grossed 420 million worldwide. Now, you may have heard that theaters take half the money a movie makes. That's not entirely true. It's a little less than that, and it also depends on which country you're talking about. Yeah. I might do a video about this in the future, but just to...
You know, I think it would be cool for this guy to make videos about things that he does actually know about, as opposed to things that he pretends to know things about but ultimately doesn't, or thinks that he knows things about. I don't doubt that this guy probably has a pretty extensive knowledge of the actual mechanics that go into the production, marketing, and distribution of a film, and that'd be really interesting to know about, because I got a little bit of that in like an introductory film class that I took in college. You know, we talked a little bit about like, oh, you know, you have to do this in pre-production, and then production's a little bit, you know, has these steps to it, and then like this is the way in which like a movie gets marketed, and the kind of money that it needs to make in order to be successful, considered a good return on investment, things like that. But you know, I think a full picture would be a lot better for people, especially because it would help people understand what like what parts of a movie are like, or not what parts of a movie. It can help people understand why there's a dissonance between what movies are good and what movies get made. You know, because I don't know if this guy realizes it. Maybe he would if you sat him down and talked to him about it for an extended period of time. But ultimately, the profit motive is what's sinking the movie industry right now. You know, you might even call it a tendency of the rate of profit to fall. That more and more corner cutting and like laziness in filmmaking is resulting on worse movies on average, and it's like rarer and rarer that we get a good one. And not anything to do, in fact, with wokeness.
To make the math easier, let's cut in.
But I think that'd be interesting.
Subtract the cost of their
I don't know if I would watch it, but
we're left with a cool $10 million.
Hi, comrade. How are you? Came from the tag socialism. Hi, welcome to chat, Vittor Benedetti. I'm doing all right. Reviewing this guy's video, who is a whole smorgasbord of weird political takes. This Just a Robot fella, who's apparently an anti-woke progressive or something like that. Like, he's got a lot of anti-woke brain rot when he talks about media, but actually does understand that there are the systemic issues that people care about, and that there is a correct way to, like, talk about that. So I'd say I'm doing all right.
After we subtract
despite the brain damage, of course.
Yeah, they basically broke even. At least they'll make a little money.
Yeah, anti-woke libertarian while having progressive values. Very weird stuff.
Through DVD and Blu-ray sales, it being on streaming services, and of course we can't forget about the Transformer merchandising. This was a pretty expensive commercial for it, and considering it didn't really lose or make any money, I say
From
that's
Brazil.
a success.
You're from the US, yes? Yes, I am from the United States. Hope things are going all right down there.
I know it might sound like I'm being sarcastic, but merchandising is where the real money is for franchises. But
yes, okay. This is definitely something that this guy knows a lot about, is the marketing and financial aspects of making a movie. Star Wars is the most infamous example where, like, so much of the money that comes in to the coffers from Star Wars is from merchandise, toys, like shirts, clothes, like games, all that shit. So much money to be made from that. This is why sometimes companies can be kind of sheepish about producing more mature content. When stuff is palatable for kids, it's a lot easier to make money off of. Vittor Benedetti, thank you very much for the follow. Yeah, like, toys are a very easy way to make money. Cheap, super cheap. You just get some plastic and mold it into the shape, and you have a captive audience, kids who are very dumb and will eat that shit up. This guy had a very Christian fundamentalist and abusive mother who pushed her values on him. That may be the reason why he has more progressive values. That sucks to hear. I'm very sorry that he had that kind of upbringing. You never want to hear that. And, it's interesting. A lot of people get, kind of discover their more progressive values as a product of, like, an abusive upbringing. That could also, that could also be part of the reason that he went down the anti-SJW path. I don't know if you guys remember, if you were on the internet back then, but some of the anti-SJW video making crowd were sort of spawned from the new atheists on the internet. It's possible that, like, it's like as visceral of a rejection of Christian fundamentalism as you can really get. I don't want to, like, psychoanalyze or infantilize this guy or anything, but, like, I don't know, I guess that's that sucks, bro.
But the real
Skeptic atheist? Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Transformers movie woke or not? Now, I want to make it clear, I haven't seen this Transformers movie, and I'm never going to see it along with any
True,
movie,
honestly.
because I find them to be incredibly historically inaccurate.
What?
Yes, I am a bit of a Decepticon sympathizer. I decided to look up Transformers
Okay.
Rise of the Machine, Get Woke, Go Broke on YouTube. I remember a lot of people were talking about this clip where one of the Transformers identified as non-binary. Bro,
Okay.
you're a robot just like me. You're nothing but a binary. But then again, considering Transformers are alien robots,
That's pretty good. good, I
Could
guess.
have a quantum computer inside of them, which would make them non-binary, but I highly doubt it. Now, personally, I'm one of those guys.
I don't know if he's shitposting. I'll see this through to see if he's shitposting, but if he's not, I have some thoughts.
Who doesn't believe there's an infinite amount of genders? Hell, I don't believe in more than 2.
Okay, this is retard shit. He is not shitposting, and in fact, this is retard shit. Robots do not have gender, thank you. We don't know what kind of gender concept they have on Robot World, Transformers World. Non-binary just means not man or woman, which, I mean, a robot isn't, so I guess. Also, we made that shit up. We made up gender. We could fucking create infinite genders if we wanted to. Yeah. In fact, let's play this game right now. How do you know that I'm a man? Sorry, I don't want to make that pause too dramatic, too pregnant, or whatever. The reason that you would know that I'm a man, to assume it to look at me, is not because I'm going to pull down my pants and show my dick on camera. I'm not going to do that. The reason that you can tell I'm a guy is because I have a deep voice, is because I have more gruff facial features for lack of skincare, most likely. Because I wear more masculine clothing and behave masculine. It's ultimately all in the behavior. You know, the divide between who is a man and who is a woman is not like a biologically essentialist thing. There's way better videos for me to like point to that could explain this a lot better. Ultimately, I think it's cringe enough. I think it's cringe enough that he's like going for 2017 era. There are only 2 genders talking points, because like. Sure, we'll see how well that treats you at the gay bar when like half the people there are trans and probably a quarter of them are non-binary. I think I'll let that one play out on its own. Also, this is like, you could read most articles in like any medical journal and they would confirm what I have to say about this, which is that like, still, you shouldn't copy iShow's speed with the D-stream. Yeah, no, I wasn't planning to. Yeah, Republicans are pretty insane. A lot of conservatives in a lot of different countries, for some reason, are very, very concerned with what is inside the pants of underage children. Very sus indeed. And that is how committed they are to making sure that there are only 2 genders and that kids aren't being groomed. We will literally subject you to mandatory dick inspection.
In fact,
pretty cringe.
I don't even believe in 2. I only believe there's 1 gender. It's either nerf or nothing. But that
Okay, maybe he was shitposting, in which case I may have been a little bit too harsh. Yes, there is only 1 gender, and it's mine. You can't have it. Mom said it's my turn. It's my gender now. This could also be like him just doing the whole ambiguous post about whether he actually believes something or not. That's possible.
that line was from
I don't know
a
what he
cartoon,
actually
not-
believes. I don't know if he knows what he actually believes. I've been driving like shit this race, by the way. Listen to the video. It's always your turn? Yeah, it's my gender. You can't have it.
The movie. Yeah, I saw someone using this clip from the cartoon to say that the movie was woke for some reason. Like, first of all, buddy, those are 2 different things. Sure, I guess you could say they're somewhat related, but that's about it. If we were getting a new live-action He-Man movie, I wouldn't bash on it for being
fuck
woke
yeah.
because things happened in the Netflix show Masters of the Universe Revelations.
Also, He-Man is a woke as fuck character. You have any idea how gay that man looks? If you had an anti-woke He-Man, he wouldn't be He-Man. He has to be, like, turbo gay in order to be recognizable as He-Man. He-Man is inherently woke. I will not accept any slander to our boy.
So if one brief scene about non-binary pronouns is enough for you to scream out, woke, woke,
True, he literally has the pronouns in his name.
it's too woke for me, then you're in for a rude awakening, buddy. Like if I had a woke scale going from 1 to 10, with a 10 being that Velma show, a 9 being She-Hulk, a 5...
By the way, that show was like basically nothing. That show was written apparently by like weird TERFs, like transphobes, about like it was some second wave bullshit that like nobody liked. It basically only existed for outrage bait. Also, I agree She-Hulk probably like wasn't all that good. I haven't watched it, not going to watch it. I have no interest in it. They did my boy Hulk dirty, and that's what I care about. So fuck that show, I guess.
5 being a normal movie, like, I don't know, Star Wars A New Hope, a 3 being Gone with the Wind, and a 1 being something like, Birth of a Nation. Then I would put a race scene talking about non-binary pronouns had a 5.2. I saw a few other people calling this movie woke because it had brown people as the main characters. Apparently there's a line from one of the characters saying that he steals because he doesn't like capitalism. And apparently near the start there's a black person going in for a job interview, and his family tells him to laugh at the white people's jokes, so he's more likely to get a job.
Yeah.
Really? That's it? Brown people...
Wait, okay. All the things that he listed there, first of all, I think what he's doing here is he's agreeing that like those things make for a good story, and they're like very immersive and don't like break the experience or whatever. Those are also all very woke things. Like a black family telling their kid like, hey, you know, you go in there, you gotta laugh at the white man's joke so you can actually get a job because, you know, we know who runs this bitch, right? Like, that's a woke-ass message to send to people that, like, hey, systemic racism still exists, by the way. You know, we have to try to live with that until we can fix it, you know? And the bit about, like, somebody shoplifting because they don't like capitalism or whatever. I know people who are like this. I am like this sometimes. I don't shoplift because I don't need to. But, like, ultimately, I have no ethical problem with shoplifting because it's, like, the public commons and shit. Yeah, I guess this is an example of this guy, you know, the intersection of this guy's progressive politics and his anti-woke politics, is that in his mind, more than anything, woke equals bad. And if something is progressive and it's good, well, then that means it can't be woke, because woke is only when something's bad.
Character not liking capitalism and one very mildly racist joke towards white people. Like, holy shit, dude, right-wing SJW.
Yeah, this guy is capitalizing on anti-woke content while himself being woke. You know? You know what I think? What I think he's, in some way, he's reaching for, if I ever, like, agreed with one of his criticisms of, like, wokeness, would be liberalism. That's probably the most common point of agreement that we would have, is that liberals don't have any fundamental interest in solving systemic issues, but have some sort of interest in, like, bearing witness to suffering or whatever it is, and they'll be like, oh, racism is bad, but also we shouldn't do anything to fundamentally change the systems that perpetuate racism, or some shit like that. When he thinks woke, he just thinks of the screeching Gamergate feminist. That probably is what he thinks of. I can fix him, I promise. I'm just kidding, I don't know.
It'd be pretty cringe sometimes. Like, I guess you could say it was racist towards white people, but it didn't offend me personally. I thought it was...
Dude, true. Also, here the thing about, like, racist jokes about white people, they are racist, but like, they don't do the kind of social harm or whatever that a racist joke against black people will do, especially coming from a white person, right? Like, at the end of the day, you make all the racist jokes about white people you want. Fuck it. You know, white people are still the dominant racial power group. You know, it's like, if anything, those kind of jokes only hurt, like, minorities, if anything, because, like, it would just reinforce that divide. And that divide is less detrimental, or least detrimental, I should say, to white people, which is why I think everybody should eventually be comfortable with making racist jokes about everybody, but we're not there yet, so. Also, there is a bar there. It has to be a good joke. And a lot of people who like making racist jokes about racial minorities are fucking incapable of making a good joke, because for them, the joke is just, haha, I love racism. You know? Anyways, another tangent. Go off, very confused king. This guy's brain is non-binary because it can't settle itself on a given position, and I support him.
It's kind of funny and true. I guess we're gonna start seeing right-wingers push for microaggressions for white people next. The biggest
Bro, true? Holy shit.
issue I have
That's
with the term
actually
"get woke, go broke"
a good
is how
joke.
people on the far right will use it to describe any movie
Ah.
that has even a little shred of wokeness in it.
Now you're
What
speaking
I'm
my
trying to say
language.
is
Fuck the
don't
far
pander
right.
to the 5% of the people who are on the far left, and don't immediately go in the complete opposite direction and pander to the 5% of people who are on the far right. Aim for the 90% who are in the middle. Sure, according to
Enlightened centrism. I mean, you can, you can make your film to appeal to whoever you want. There's material circumstances to keep in mind. And that might be what he's missing here, is that, like, at the end of the day, this stuff is not dictated by, like, who should we appeal to for X, Y, or Z moral reasons, but it's more so just a game of marketing. Because for-profit industry and all that. Also, I would dare say that, like, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse really fucking appeals to people on the far left. Like, if you consider anarchists and socialists as constituent parts of the far left, maybe that first rule isn't something that you have to 100% adhere to. But if you make some Nazi shit, then you've made Nazi shit, and that's usually not good. Funny enough, wouldn't you know it, appealing to Nazi shit is a lot more detrimental to a widely appealing marketing project than appealing to anarchism and socialists and stuff like that.
some
Who
people,
would've thunk it?
Spider-Verse and the new Transformer movies are woke. But I want to make it clear that's certainly not my opinion. Ruby Gillman didn't bomb because it was
This
woke.
guy also sees no problem with Sound of Freedom, and that is a retarded take. Yeah. I've heard mixed things about Sound of Freedom as a movie itself, but ultimately I think the biggest problem with it is the way that it portrays child trafficking as some sort of, like, thing that you have to go and heroically fix. It, like, the way it narrativizes it as if it's this sort of thing that doesn't necessarily, like, systemically happen as a result of the wanton desires of the bourgeoisie and the people in power and whatever. And that this fucking, like, QAnon adjacent guy has any role in fixing it. I think that's pretty bad and, like, unconscionable, basically. Because there have been a number of, like, human rights orgs who try to combat human trafficking as it now exists, that are, like, saying, yeah, QAnoners make our job way the fuck harder, because they just call everybody a child predator and shit. Pretty cringe take.
Bombed because it was a movie that offered nothing new. I haven't seen the Flash movie. I don't know if it's woke or not, but it didn't bomb because it was woke. It bombed because it was a DC movie, and it was starring Ezra Miller.
That's true. Also, it bombed because... Well, it didn't bomb because DC plus Ezra Miller. It bombed because DC plus Ezra Miller plus bad movie plus CGI plus L plus ratio. That's why it bombed. So that's the full picture. Plus Baby in Microwave also. Plus ratio again. Until the president of Argentina solved child trafficking by legalizing it. Yeah, true. I was gonna say, yeah, he will solve the child trafficking problem by simply becoming the CEO of child trafficking. Every libertarian is like this. Libertarian, that is. If somebody calls themselves a libertarian socialist, though, they are not like this because they're basically not a libertarian. That gets into the complications of, like, who calls themselves what versus the implications of the actual philosophy behind the label or whatever. But yeah, not a good crowd to be hanging around in.
It was a little woke, but it more so bombed because, just like Ruby Gillman, it was an average...
Elementals bombed because fucking... I think it just, like, had no substance behind it or something. Look, there's a lot of reasons. Ultimately, I think the sloppy allegory that he pointed out earlier was the biggest reason that the movie bombed. Because, like, it is reasonable to watch a movie like that and come away thinking that the message of that movie is that racism is fundamentally okay. That's probably why the movie bombed, is because of, like, you don't want to say that in your movie. Oh, red shells can go over that? That's interesting.
movie that didn't
This
offer
guy's
anything
libertarian
new.
too. I
Now,
wonder
some
what
of
he
you
thinks
may
of
be
Millet.
thinking to yourselves, "Come on there, just a robot."
I don't know. He probably thinks some shit about like, oh, he's gonna go to fight the World Economic Forum. He's gonna take it to the big boys. Some normie shit like that. I think if anything, if nothing else, this guy has established that he's basically just a normie more than anything. Oh, oops, no item, and I'm coming in 8th
Your
place. Okay.
evidence contradicts what you're saying in this video. The only get woke go broke example you have is Indiana Jones 5. Exactly. Aside from Spider-Man, it was by far the biggest IP, and it had the highest budget out of all of these movies. Have you ever heard the phrase too big to fail? When a
Hold on, he might be cooking.
company gets really, really big, smaller companies, the media, and a bunch of other people will make sure it doesn't fail. Because if it does, all those who are propping it up would start making less and less money. Matt Pat on his channel Film Theory
Wait a minute, he's cooking? Legend spoke of the man who could cook this hard in a schizophrenic state of mind.
already talked about this in a video called We Killed the MCU. If you want a little extra information, I would
That video might be based as fuck. I might want to check that out. Who knows?
recommend checking that video out. But basically, the Marvel Cinematic Universe was single-handedly holding up the theater industry. If it died, all the other film franchises together...
And then the MCU died. Holy shit. Okay, yeah. To be fair, I don't think that's the only reason the film industry died, or like had a die-off period. But it certainly isn't good for the film industry to stake so much on one series or one like IP.
wanted to make enough money to keep the theaters open. When a Marvel movie was gonna drop, the other movies would make room, so it would have less competition. The media always talked about these movies in a positive light, and critics gave them thunderous applause. But they knew Marvel wasn't going to last forever, so they needed
That's
something
true.
to replace it. Maybe something from LucasArts, like Indiana Jones or
maybe.
Star Wars. Well, Marvel got more and more woke, and the movies made less and less money. Same with Star
No, Marvel didn't get more and more woke. In fact, I think, like, probably... God, what killed Marvel was not, like, some woke shit. In fact, Endgame, I think, was the highest grossing movie of all time, and that literally had a, like, a fucking girl power moment in the final scene. On repeat viewings, it's pretty cringe, because it feels really forced. And I would rather, like, be watching one of the movies where, like, there's a more authentically written role for the female characters and stuff, which does exist in Marvel, by the way. But it, like, that's not a... He's doing the go woke, go broke bit, even though he doesn't agree with that line of logic, as he himself has admitted. Oh, oops, I'm dead.
Star Wars as well. Sure, the first one may have made $1 billion, but then the movie started making less and less money. Indiana Jones was their last hope, and after people saw what Disney did to
You
Marvel
fucking
and Star
asshole,
Wars,
Rosa.
they were not willing to give it the time of
Goddamn.
day. So if people are not going to go to the movies,
This guy's
and
stream
droves
sniping
to
for
see
sure.
something big like a Marvel or Star Wars movie, then why would they even bother to go see Ruby Gilman? You can have the biggest IPs at your disposal, $100 million worth of special effects, and all the positive press in the world. But at the end of the day, all those things don't matter that much if you don't keep your fans happy. And the fans
That's
are
kinda
not happy
true.
with woke bullshit. Corner
Nah, the fans are actually perfectly fine with that. They're not okay with overworked CGI artists and, like, bad movies. That's ultimately what they're not okay with. That's what's been sinking the MCU. I don't know if you guys have noticed. The CGI in MCU movies used to be a landmark fucking achievement, you know? Truly, like, a paragon of advancement in the industry. And now it's just, like, bargain bin bullshit, you know? Because they overwork the CGI artists, and like, they don't have a union, so the executives and the producers all exploit that. And as a result, like, you get worse and worse quality movies because they hinge more and more of those movies on the CGI artists. Go woke. It's like going woke has no bearing on whether or not you go broke. You know? It's possible for a movie to be woke and, like, perform at the box office, and it's also possible to not, you know? It all has to do with the other extenuating circumstances of a movie.
Stone went woke, the entire film industry went broke. Of course, they won't take any personal responsibility. They'll blame it on streaming services, superhero fatigue, and
Unironically, those are more valid reasons for what's happening right now. The streaming services, meaning that, like, there's not as much of a reason to go to the movies anymore, is a big reason why the film industry started declining in the sense of, like, people going to the theaters and stuff like that. And what was the other thing he listed?
personal responsibility. They'll blame it on streaming services, superhero fatigue.
Superhero fatigue was also a big part of this. Think about it. This had been 10 plus years of superhero movies being a mainstay of film culture. And that certainly does not help people. That certainly does not help your case when you're making another superhero movie that you're hoping to draw people to the theaters for, because it's like, it is oversaturation of a genre. It is market oversaturation. It's literally like the supply-demand thing. There's more supply than there is demand, or some shit like that. This is very basic marketing and economics.
And the lockdowns, which have already been lifted, before they ever...
The lockdowns also did have this effect, but this was more lasting as a result of the lockdowns. It almost doesn't matter that the lockdowns have been lifted anymore, because people, like, have sort of... There's an inertia that comes with functioning in an antisocial climate. And for a lot of people, it's not that easy to go to the movies anymore. People don't have as many friends as they used to, and things like that. So all of the things that he listed as being like, they'll distract you by saying one of these things, all of those are more valid reasons for the film industry's decline than what he just said about, like, oh, go woke, go broke. Oh, shit. Poor Dry Bones. Hopefully he's going to make fun of that opinion, hopefully. I doubt it.
Find a new industry to infect. They'll destroy the movie industry, streaming services, and so much more. Eventually, people will only watch things on certain websites, like YouTube. Hey, come on now. That money has to go somewhere, and I personally think that my pocket is a pretty good place for it.
Damn.
Coming in here real
Pretty
quick
shameless.
to say that my patron, Bloody Eclipse, wanted me to...
Okay. No one's gonna watch 20 movies and 4 TV shows to be caught up with the universe. Yeah, exactly! The fucking MCU introduced, like, you have to do homework now and some shit like that. Really not a good model to set. Also, I'm way far behind because this guy filled my brain with retard shit, and now I can't drive because I'm retarded. This is your fault. Just a robot. I blame you for this. Anyways. I don't even know what to take away from that, because frankly, this guy didn't either. If I want to be charitable towards him, I would highlight the very strong arguments that he made about there's a correct way to do this, and also, like, the too big to fail bit, and all of the economic critiques and stuff of, like, the producers being fucking ghouls. You know, there are things that I could positively speak of here, but I could just as easily be not very charitable, because, let's be real, he gave me ample opportunity to not be charitable with the retarded shit that he said. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I do have a set takeaway from that, other than this guy has incoherent politics. And like, it is good that he can potentially take a Gamergator audience and pull them leftwards, but at the same time, this guy's not doing anybody's brain any favors, I don't think. Used to be my favorite YouTuber. Yeah. You know what? Last time I jumped to conclusions by saying, like, you might want to unsubscribe from this guy. I'm not gonna say something that harsh, I think. You can subscribe to whoever you want. In fact, I think there is some value in watching videos like that. Yeah, ultimately, I don't know what to make of that guy's brain. I don't know what to make of that guy's politics. He doesn't know what to make of his politics. And that's all I have to say on the matter. I think that if I wanted to go back and address the overarching question, is every movie bombing because of wokeness? No. I respect how someone could watch such brain rot and maintain 9,000 VR for a period of time. Thank you, Xylan MK, and also welcome to chat. Great to have you here. Unfortunately, I'm at the end of stream. I'm also at the end of my rope. Yeah, if I want to go back and address the overarching question that he rhetorically posed in the video title, are movies bombing because of wokeness? No. Wokeness has little to no bearing on whether or not a movie bombs. What a movie lives or dies on the quality of its writing and how much money has been sunk into the project. Paradoxically, beyond a certain point, spending more money on a movie does not make it better. It just makes your chances of failing higher. And you know, with wokeness, nobody fucking knows what that word means. But in this guy's case, it's like axiomatic woke equals bad. So if something's bad, it's woke. And if something's woke, it's bad. And if something's progressive and good, that means it can't be woke. Very incoherent, like, very incoherent set of beliefs in there rattling around. This guy is even a Vosh head. If his 2-second recommendation wasn't ironic. Yeah, you know what? I will choose to be more charitable because this guy thinks positively of Vosh, and that's like a way rarer sight. I think that there is like the wokeness that this guy maybe is referring to, I think, is a genuine phenomenon that company executives love to engage in, that probably makes writers fucking grit their teeth because they're like, holy shit, how do I write this? You know, how do I write this? Because they're interested, the producers and the executives are interested in collecting a check. A lot of them are racist fucks, so their image of what diversity looks like is very skewed. Now that I think about it, he might have been ironic. It could have been, but I'm going to operate on the assumption that it wasn't. At least for now. Yeah, look, I don't want to get too deep into the parasocial bit. To me, that video seems like kind of a wash, but I think for normies that could be a potential force to pull leftward, especially with the direction that other anti-SJW YouTubers have gone. So, yeah. He also says no socialists have jobs. Yeah, okay, back to retard shit, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Look, this might be the first time that I've seen a video like that, and I'm like, I genuinely don't know what to think. I think his first principles are two things. First, he does not like the circumstances of his upbringing. Of like, he doesn't like the Christian fundamentalism. He doesn't like the fucking abuse and shit, and that led him to the new atheist and whatever. And then number two is that he's a retard. And that's it. That's my assessment of that video. All right. Anyways, stream is done. I'm gonna see if anybody else is live. Not likely. Yeah. Okay. He's a vid just on his politics if you want more content. Stop!